So this poor Bronco has been out of the game for about a week. After sacrificing itself for the greater good of internet content, it is now in the middle of an absolute mood swing, throwing all kinds of system alerts. The main one we are concerned with today is the charging system service now notification. Because this problem is not covered by warranty, as the dealer stated that the dust would be a little hard to miss, today I will be pulling my alternator and seeing if a deep clean will save me from having to buy a brand new alternator. I will also be answering several questions regarding this process, and don't worry, we'll be coming out with an alternator removal video for you 2.7 Bronco guys, so stay tuned for that.
Alrighty folks, so if you haven't, hold up, let me put this hat on properly. So if you haven't checked out the explanation video on how all of these problems came to be, make sure you check it out. It's only 6 minutes long, and it gives you all the context you need to realize why the alternator on this 2.7 EcoBoost has conked out. So I'm not gonna go too in depth, but the gist of the story is we were splashing through a mud puddle, we got back on the road, and the Bronco started freaking out. Now, we believe this is because the alternator on these 2.7 EcoBoost and the 2.3 is mounted very low. What happens with water, mud, and grime is it starts to build up in your alternator till eventually you're left on the side of the road with no battery juice. So again, we are gonna pull this alternator to see what kind of buildup we have. Hopefully we can get it cleaned and get this beast back in the wild. Now, before I pull my alternator out, which, let's be honest, that takes way too long to say. So for the rest of the video, I'm gonna call my alternator Ricky for time management purposes. So before I pull Ricky out, if you guys are having similar problems with your Bronco, there are a couple things you may want to try first that other people have found to be successful. So the first thing that you can try is disconnect your negative battery cable for 30 seconds. And if that doesn't work, you can try spraying Ricky down with electric cleaner to try and get rid of any buildup and debris. Both of those efforts were futile in our case, so it looks like Ricky is getting yanked. Ricky is getting yanked. Okay, maybe that was a bad idea. Yeah, whatever. Let's get to work.
I went to work with what little knowledge and experience I had. The clock was ticking, and while this was supposed to be a simple alternator pull, after an hour or so, I realized
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Now, to help you guys avoid the hangups I ran into with this process, I'll be coming out with a video on how to remove your Bronco alternator. But for this video, I want to highlight the main reason this alternator removal was taking so long. I spent a good portion of time looking for a belt tensioner. What I learned later was on the 2.7, the alternator utilizes what's called a stretch belt, rather than your standard serpentine belt. After making a few phone calls, I had to run to an auto parts store and buy a special tool to remove the belt. At this point, I'm embarrassed to say how much time I'd put into this fix with nothing to show for it.
Let's see, 3 hours in.
3 freaking hours, guys. I was expecting an hour or two tops. I underestimated Ricky and paid the price. I already know the keyboard warriors are gonna beat me up in the comments, as they should. 3 hours for an alternator removal, and I didn't even have it out yet. Gosh, at this point, looking back on those photos, I can't help but think, was it really worth it?
We will get to that question of was it worth it after. I need a mental break. I will see you guys when the sun is shining again.
I love fresh starts, a new day, birds chirping, the smell of oil in the morning. Now to get that dang stretch belt off.
Good morning, folks. It is day 2 of an alternator pull. So, like I talked about yesterday, what we learned is that the 2.7 has a stretch belt. So you're gonna need a special tool. I got this from O'Reilly's. We should have this thing out in like a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 30 minutes. At some point today though.
The stretch belt tool was not doing its job. Maybe it had something to do with an operator error. We won't get into that. But I learned again that if you stick with it, eventually.
Ladies and gentlemen, if that ain't the prettiest belt I ever did see. What now?
I know what you're thinking. No, I really do. Why the actual heck do you need a massive pry bar when taking an alternator out? Yeah, look, listen, I'm there with you. To that point, because the alternator was so caked in mud, it was not budging. The lower mounting point on Ricky would not give up until we finally got everything lined up perfectly. Once Ricky was off the mounting points, we wrestled through the small, and I mean big emphasis on small, gap until finally.
Oh yeah, baby. Let me bask in my victory. Alrighty folks, so after hours and hours of trying to get this thing out, a little back and forth, Ricky is out, and to be completely honest, I don't know what the problem is. A little dirt never hurt anybody. We're gonna spend our time now pulling this thing apart carefully and seeing if we could clean a little bit of this out, stuffing it back in, and see if Ricky will work for us. So, crossing my fingers here, folks. Still, up to this point, never done this before. Uncharted territory. Oh, bolt just snapped. Imagine.
This entire process was like going back to grade school. You know nothing, you have no experience, you're a worthless, helpless piece of... Yeah, what? No, I wasn't... No, dude, kids are awesome. I'm talking like... Okay, you get my point. I felt like an idiot. No idea what I was doing, but with the Garage Warrior spirits guiding me, I unscrewed and pried and hammered until Ricky was nothing more than a pile of parts.
Okay. Cleaning time. Cleaning time it is. All right, now that we have thoroughly soaked this electrical piece of equipment, let's let it dry and put it back in. Alrighty folks, so here we go. The exploded Ricky on the cart. And to be completely honest, I don't have much faith in this process here. Mainly because of me. I know it's worked for other people on the internet, but you know, we will have to see. I'm being very open and honest with you guys. I'm very vulnerable in my, not my self-esteem, but just the faith in my work here today, folks. So, because we're gonna call it today, we're gonna come back out one more time tomorrow, button this all back together after it's all dried, throw it back in the Bronco, and see what happens. So, thank you guys for watching up to this point. We will see you tomorrow. Peace.
We started the day at everyone's favorite parts store, hoping that after buttoning the alternator back up, we could get it tested. After 20 minutes of valuable time spent, we learned that because the Bronco was such a new vehicle, auto parts stores couldn't test it.
Dang it. I'm disappointed. Well, good morning, boys and girls. It is day 17 of trying to figure out if this alternator is going to work. At this point, we have tried to get this thing tested outside of the vehicle to no avail. Again, I've told you guys I don't think it's gonna work anyways, but for the sake of this video, we have decided to do all of the work of throwing this thing back in the Bronco, bolting everything down, plugging everything in, and seeing if it does in fact work, because we want you guys to learn if this process is worth it. We wanna know if this process is worth it. Again, a new alternator is on the way, so I won't be leaving this in there. So we're gonna be doing the work twice, but again, it's for you guys. So if you haven't subscribed already, do us a favor and help us out, because we wanna know just as bad as you guys. And so we're gonna do the work. So with that said, this is taking long enough. Let's get this thing in.
To my surprise, I remembered where all the bolts went and had Ricky back in the vehicle in under an hour. And yes, that's a flex considering how long it took me to get it out.
Yeah. Power, baby. Okay, alrighty folks. So at this point in time, I have done everything that I could do with Ricky. And this is the moment of truth, folks. I am going to fire it up. I'm gonna see if we have codes. Good old codes, man. That part's good. Happy about that. It starts. Usually it takes about 5 seconds for this thing to tell me how she feels. I don't know.
Totally charging.
No. Let's go take a look at it. Is it supposed to be glowing red? I guess the only other thing to do is go take a test drive and look at them volts, huh? Let's look at those volts first. Come here. Battery voltage is on. 15 volts.
15.1, you're good. You're charging.
Ooh, turn on the AC.
And it's charging because you didn't totally charge up the battery, right?
I didn't totally charge it.
Yeah, so
15.
I mean, it's charging right now.
So now here's the thing though, this 15.1 sounds kind of high. Could the voltage regulator be an issue?
Kick your, anything could be an issue, but kick some stuff that's gotta make it work. And
Your lights, right?
They're on. And I guess we still take it for a test drive, huh?
It dropped 14.6.
Ah. All right, 14.6. And we are gonna take the old spin around the block. Oh man, I just saved myself 700 bucks, baby. Sort of, I still spent the money, but I'll have a spare. Now, you know what I'm interested in now, folks, is how long I could leave this alternator in and it work. You know, like maybe this goes for another 20 years, right? I need to find a puddle right now. See if we really fixed it.
All jokes aside, the test drive was a success. Against all odds, Ricky managed to pull his act together and my Bronco is officially back on the road. Now for how long? Who can say? I guess only time will tell.
With that said, guys, the question that we started out this video with, is should you do this? Should you try this at home? And I've got to say, after the 3 days of work trying to get this thing out, exploding it and putting it all back together, trying to get it tested, and none of that making sense to me the whole time until I was done with the process and then spending that hour putting it back in because I knew what I was doing. I would say that you shouldn't, really. I'm gonna be honest, you guys should not try this at home. Now, I get it. Some of you guys have been working in your grandpa's driveway for the past 50 years, working on tractors and trucks and old stuff, and you've kept up with the new stuff enough. You guys know how to wrench. You guys are true, honest gearheads, and you guys can probably figure this stuff out, and you guys could do it probably way quicker than me, even though you've never even seen the inside of an early Bronco or a new Bronco. I get that. There are those of you guys out there. I absolutely respect the crap out of you guys. I think y'all are awesome. But for the guy who may be just on YouTube trying to save some money, yes, saving 700 bucks is great, but the stress of trying to learn this thing, it's a big mountain to climb. So unless you've got the desire to learn the skills to be able to help on the trail, let's say, then I would steer clear of doing something like this. I would take it to a professional, whether to Ford or to, you know, your buddy's shop, and just spend the money and save yourself the headache. Now, again, I'm glad I learned, but that is now up to you. It's your call, folks. Let me know in the comments what you guys would do if you were in my situation, and we'll kind of go from there. But at that point, guys, that is a wrap to this video. I appreciate all of you guys watching up to this point. Hopefully you guys learned a little bit. Again, stay tuned because we will be doing the video where we show you guys how to remove the alternator. So hopefully it doesn't take you 3 days to take the alternator out. It's so dumb, so dumb. You guys are free to roast me in the comments at this point. I will be there roasting myself. But anyways, guys, if you're not subscribed already, make sure you do become one of the horsemen. Stay tuned for all the other rad stuff we've got coming. And with all of that being said, we'll see you out there on the trail. Peace!